My name was Yusuf. I was a respected professor of Islamic studies at a university in Casablanca, where the whispers of dissent dared not surface. For years, I guided students through the rigid corridors of faith, adorned with the heavy garments of tradition and expectation. I was revered, yet I wore my respect like a mask, an armor hiding a profound emptiness that gnawed at my soul. Inside, I felt like a ghost, drifting through prayers that rang hollow. While I preached the teachings of the Quran, I was haunted by questions that lurked in the shadows of my mind, questions that society demanded I suppress. With each passing day, the weight of conformity pressed down upon me, suffocating my yearning spirit. Spiritual disconnect consumed me until it culminated in a moment that would alter my existence forever. Then came the night of my accident. A harrowing twist of fate threw me into a black abyss, a coma where darkness wrapped around me like a shroud. In that suffocating silence, something divine pierced the void. A brilliance erupted before me, and I heard my name called, echoing in the vast expanse. What stood before me was not the figure I had been taught to revere, but Jesus, radiating truth in a world shadowed by illusion. He did not speak in riddles or a foreign tongue. He spoke to my heart in a way that shattered the chains of fear and doubt. In that ethereal moment, he unveiled the layers of deception that had cloaked my mind for years. The conflict I had felt was not merely personal, but a universal struggle, a spiritual war hidden in plain sight. I realized then that I was not just leaving Islam. I was stepping into a calling, a divine purpose that would demand everything from me. As I awoke, the reality of my journey anchored me in turmoil. Rejected by those I held dear, I was cast into the wilderness of doubt and fear. But in my isolation, I found a glimmer of hope, a community of ex-Muslims like me wrestling with their own revelations. They offered a sanctuary where I could explore this newfound truth, yet I felt the crushing weight of potential loss, of family, of identity, of everything I had ever known. So here I stand now, beckoning you to join me in this journey of uncovering hidden truths. Before we delve into my testimony, I urge you to share where you are watching from and what time it is there. Your voice matters. This connection crosses borders built on belief. And if you love Jesus and long for more revelations that can transform your spirit, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. This isn't just a story, it is the unfolding of a truth that could set you free. The journey awaits. In the heart of a university campus in Casablanca, Morocco, my life as a professor was characterized by an unsettling tension between my pursuit of knowledge and the constraints imposed by cultural and religious norms. My name is Farid, and I dedicated years to teaching history, passionate about exploring the truths of our past and how they shape our present. Yet as I engaged with my students and colleagues, I felt an ever-growing weight. The pressure of conformity that loomed over academic freedom in a society heavily influenced by conservatism and Islam. This internal conflict simmered beneath the surface, intensifying with each passing day. As I lectured, I noticed the inquisitiveness in the eyes of my students. They hungered for discussions that went beyond the boundaries of tradition, but there was a lingering fear in the air. A silent agreement that questioning established beliefs could lead to dire consequences. I began to feel like a caged bird, observing the vast skies of knowledge outside while being tethered to the limitations of my upbringing. Each day I struggled between my commitment to truth and the deep-seated fear of the repercussions I might face for challenging societal norms. Then came the moment that would change everything. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, a sudden illness struck me, the kind that seemed to pull me away from my body. In that disorienting state, I found myself on the precipice of a near-death experience. It felt as though I was lifted from this world and cast into a tranquil expanse of darkness. It was frightening yet oddly peaceful, a hollow space where my thoughts drifted like leaves in the wind. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced through the darkness, and there stood Jesus, radiant and welcoming. His presence enveloped me in warmth, and as he spoke, a profound sense of clarity began to wash over me. He addressed the hidden agenda woven into the fabric of our society, illuminating the deception that kept me chained to my fears. The elite had manipulated our understanding of faith, using religion as a means to control thoughts, beliefs, and ultimately, lives. It became clear that what I had held as sacred truths were, in fact, interpretations shaped by an oppressive structure designed to maintain power and suppress inquiry. With every revelation, I felt chains loosening, the weight of oppression beginning to lift from my soul. As Jesus continued to reveal deeper truths about the spiritual war surrounding us, I realized that my journey was a calling. It wasn't just about my liberation, it was about the responsibility to share this newfound understanding with others. The world was embroiled in conflict and denial, and I understood that my role was to confront the narratives that perpetuate division and fear. As I was pulled back into my body, awakening in a hospital bed surrounded by unfamiliar faces, the urgency to act surged within me. I was changed, ignited by a fire, determined to pursue a mission of awakening and truth, no matter the cost. I prepared to leave behind the darkness of deception and step boldly into the light of understanding, willing to face the challenges ahead with faith and courage as my guide. I'm Yusuf, a 35-year-old professor of Islamic studies, yet beneath the surface of my respected position, I grappled with profound emotional exhaustion and spiritual emptiness. Teaching students about our faith, dissecting complex texts, and guiding discussions filled my days, but as I stood before my class, a gnawing question echoed within me. Is this all there is? I felt trapped in a web of expectations, both from my family and the community around me. They saw me as a scholar, a bastion of Islamic tradition. Yet my inner turmoil grew, and the weight of those expectations began to suffocate my spirit. Caught in this conflict, I often wondered about the reality of my beliefs. The rituals and practices that had provided structure to my life felt increasingly disconnected from my quest for meaning. My prayers, once a source of comfort, began to feel like mere obligations, hollow recitations lacking depth. Late at night, I would lie awake, wrestling with my thoughts, haunted by the fear that my doubts might lead to a loss of identity, the very thing I had dedicated my life to uphold. The spiritual war raged within me, fueling a cyclical battle between obedience and a yearning for truth. Then, in the midst of this struggle, life took an unexpected turn. I experienced a health crisis that thrust me into a near-death experience. One morning, while lecturing, I suddenly collapsed. I remember the chaos that ensued, voices shouting, faces looking down at me in alarm. As darkness consumed me, I felt as if I was being drawn into a surreal realm, detached from my physical body. The fear melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of calm. It was in this abyss where I encountered Jesus, his light piercing through the layers of shadow enveloping me. As Jesus approached, I was filled with an overwhelming love that washed over me. In that sacred moment, revelations unfolded like petals of a rose, revealing the hidden agendas of our society. I saw how the elite wielded power to manipulate faith, stoking division and nurturing deception to control the masses. The revelations illuminated the ways we had been conditioned to accept a distorted reality, where fear reigned supreme, pushing us farther away from the truth of unity and love. With each revelation, I felt shackles breaking. The burdens I had carried began to dissolve under the weight of divine understanding. As I regained consciousness, the warmth of that moment lingered, igniting a passion within me that I could no longer ignore. I awoke transformed, driven by a newfound mission to share the truth I had received. I felt a sense of urgency, compelling me to address the spiritual war we all face, not just within ourselves, but in the broader societal structures that suppress us. I knew I couldn't remain silent. The love and truth of Jesus demanded action. As I navigated the complexities of my life post-revelation, I remained committed to guiding others toward their own awakenings, ready to confront the fears that had kept us all in the shadows for far too long. I began experiencing a growing sense of disconnection during my prayers. A subtle yet profound shift that unsettled me deeply. I'm Yusuf, a professor of Islamic studies, and while I devoted my life to understanding our faith, a void loomed large in my heart, whispering questions I dared not voice. As I stood before my students, teaching the principles of Islam, my mind wandered to philosophical inquiries that felt at odds with the rigidity of tradition. I yearned to engage in discussions about the essence of our beliefs, the nature of God, and the moral implications of our doctrines. Conversations I felt were often stifled in my community. The more I wrestled with these thoughts, the more I felt isolated in a world that demanded conformity. My prayers became a ritual I performed without conviction, the words flowing from my lips without penetrating my spirit. In moments of solitude, I felt a profound craving to dig deeper, to uncover the truths hidden beneath layers of dogma. This internal struggle manifested itself in unsettling dreams, visions of a luminous being beckoning me toward an understanding far beyond what I had been taught. Each dream left an indelible mark on my conscience, hinting at the revelation of a profound truth that lay just beyond my grasp. Then, one night, my life took a dramatic turn. I had a near-death experience while leaving an engagement at the university. A sudden accident thrust me into a dark void, a space where I felt both lost and curiously liberated. It was a liminal realm, teetering between life and something else entirely. In that darkness, a light emerged, cutting through the shadows. It was Jesus, radiant and compassionate. His presence enveloped me, filling the void that had plagued my spirit. When he called my name, it resonated deep within my soul, igniting something dormant that longed for awakening. As I stood before him, Jesus revealed the hidden agendas that have shaped our world, the ways in which the elite played their games of power, using religion as a means of manipulation. I saw the threads of deception woven into society, creating divisions that fostered conflict instead of unity. Each revelation was a stark reminder of how I had been complicit in accepting a limited view, one that had kept me and many others ensnared in ignorance. It shook me to my core, pushing me to confront the reality of a world steeped in fear and suffering. Upon returning to consciousness, I found myself renewed, empowered by the understanding that the spiritual war is very real. My journey had shifted from mere inquiry to a mission, an urgent calling to share the truth I had unearthed. I felt compelled to engage openly in philosophical dialogues, to advocate for those who grappled with their faith and fear. The experience instilled a fire in me, pushing me to challenge the narratives that bind us and inspire others to awaken to the truths that can set us free. As I stepped into this new chapter, I couldn't help but wonder if my own journey would open doors for those still trapped in the shadows, longing for an encounter with the love and truth I had finally found. Following a near-fatal car accident, I found myself plunged into a state of darkness, an experience that would ultimately reshape my understanding of life and faith. My name is Yusuf, and as a professor of Islamic studies, I had spent years immersed in the teachings of my faith, yet beneath that scholarly exterior, I was battling an inner turmoil that left me feeling disconnected and lost. One moment I was navigating the familiar streets of my hometown, and the next I was enveloped in an oppressive void, a surreal liminality where time held no meaning. In that disorienting state of unconsciousness, it felt as if I was suspended in a deep chasm with no escape. The darkness was thick and suffocating, yet strangely, I sensed I was not alone. As my thoughts drifted, I encountered an overwhelming weight of despair, wrestling with the pain of a life unexamined. Then, out of nowhere, a brilliant light pierced through the gloom, illuminating everything around me. It was Jesus, standing before me, radiating warmth and compassion. His presence was magnificent, a stark contrast to the darkness I had just experienced, offering a sense of peace that I had long searched for. When Jesus called my name, I felt an immediate connection, like a long-lost part of myself had finally been found. He invited me to explore the depths of my being and opened my eyes to the hidden truths of my life. In that sacred moment, I received a beautiful revelation. The policies and power dynamics that shaped our world were often shrouded in deception. He revealed how the elite manipulate faith and create division, using religion as a tool for their hidden agendas. Each truth was a piercing arrow that struck deep, reminding me of the spiritual war playing out not just within me, but throughout society. I saw snapshots of the world, war, division, and suffering, created by the very narratives we had been conditioned to accept. I recognized the spiritual war one had been fighting was also a reflection of the broader struggles of humanity, a battle against the falsehoods that kept us in chains. In Jesus' eyes, I saw the simplicity of love and unity that transcended the complexity of our worldly conflicts. As whispers of hope began to resonate within, I felt called to be part of the awakening, to share this revelation with others still trapped in darkness. When I awoke from that life-altering experience, the light slowly faded, but the knowledge of what I had encountered remained vibrant in my heart. I understood now that my life's purpose had shifted dramatically. No longer could I go on teaching without acknowledging the urgent call of truth that beckoned me. I felt a powerful surge to speak out, to share the insights I had gained and help others free themselves from the deceptions they had accepted. Each day became a challenge, a new opportunity to confront my fears as I prepared to walk a path laden with both potential connection and inevitable rejection. Little did I know this journey would require every ounce of courage and conviction I had, setting the stage for the battle against the hidden forces that still sought to suppress our awakening. Upon awakening from my near-death experience, I was thrust into a reality I never anticipated. I'm Yusuf, a university professor who had spent years immersed in Islamic studies, yet the moment I opened my eyes, the world felt irrevocably changed. Instead of the reassuring faces of friends and family, I was met with a heavy silence, an absence that echoed my internal turmoil. The rejection was palpable as whispers of betrayal followed me like shadows. My family, proud of their traditions, couldn't fathom how I could question the very beliefs they held dear, and their disapproval weighed heavily on my heart. Their hostility stung deeply, as if every word uttered was a reminder of my perceived failures. Some labeled me a traitor, a lost soul who had strayed from the righteous path. Each interaction became a minefield of tension and fear, and loneliness loomed large. The community I once belonged to seemed like an impenetrable fortress, its gates closed tight against any notion of doubt. I found myself wrestling with guilt for stepping away from the faith that had shaped so much of my life. But in the depths of my despair, I felt a growing urgency, an insatiable need to seek clarity about the path Jesus had illuminated for me. In those quiet moments of reflection, I turned to the internet, plunging into the depths of spiritual literature and testimonies from those who had also journeyed from Islam to Christianity. Each article, every story shared, became a lifeline in my isolation. I felt a connection to those souls who had once stood where I stood, grappling with similar questions. The revelation of Jesus began to reshape my understanding of faith, love, and redemption. I realized that the spiritual war one faced was not only my own, but a shared struggle against the fear that kept us from embracing the truth. As I delved deeper, the teachings of Jesus resonated with the truths I had long searched for. I found comfort in the idea that even in the face of adversity, there was a promise of hope and forgiveness. I began to grasp the hidden agendas that had manipulated our beliefs, the forces that have sought to divide us. My heart raced as these insights brought a sense of awakening. With every page read and every testimony listened to, I felt the chains of deception begin to loosen, revealing a profound sense of spiritual freedom I had yearned for. But along with this awakening came the fear of the unknown. I was not just confronting my doubts, I was challenging an entire system built on rigid beliefs and strict dogmas. Yet, as the urgency to share what I had learned grew within me, I began to feel a newfound strength. I envisioned a future where I could help others break free from their own chains, where I could stand as a voice for those still tangled in the web of deception. Each day became an opportunity to explore how to face this challenge, not just for myself, but for all who sought the path of truth. The journey ahead was fraught with risk, but my heart whispered that it was a necessary fight, one I was destined to engage in as I stepped boldly into the light of awakening. In the shadows of my room, I immersed myself in reading the Bible and watching testimonies from those who had walked a similar path. My name is Yusuf, and as a professor of Islamic studies, I had spent years wrestling with the tension between my faith and the awakening that was stirring within me. After my encounter with Jesus during my near-death experience, the journey became urgent. I sought understanding and clarity in the texts of Christianity, searching for the truths that seemed to resonate with the very fiber of my being. Every word I read was like a balm, soothing the internal wounds inflicted by the deception I'd grown accustomed to. As I navigated this new terrain, I discovered a small community of former Muslims who had also embraced Christianity. Their stories mirrored mine, filled with doubt, fear, awakening, and ultimately hope. Each testimony provided me solace, fostering a feeling of kinship as we shared our experiences. I felt understood for the first time, my struggles validated by those who had faced the same spiritual war against the hidden agendas that had tried to confine us. Yet, Even amidst this newfound connection, a nagging fear tugged at my heart, threatening to overshadow the joy of awakening. What would my family think? Would they understand the reasons behind my shift in beliefs? The weight of my cultural identity pressed down heavily, mingling with guilt and anxiety. I loved my family deeply, and the thought of losing them, of being seen as a traitor to our shared traditions, was haunting. I was caught in a paradox, yearning for the truth revealed to me while fearing the rejection it might bring. Each prayer for guidance became a plea for strength, an echoing request to show me the way forward in a world where my identity felt increasingly fragmented. With each passing day, the walls of my room felt both like a sanctuary and a prison. I would pore over the teachings of Jesus, feeling the light of his message pierce through the darkness of my fears. I reflected on the revelations about the elite, the systems that manipulate our understanding and beliefs to keep us divided, and I recognized the urgency behind sharing these lessons with others. As I engaged with my community, I felt the fire of purpose igniting within me. This wasn't merely a personal awakening. It was a calling to confront the deception that kept so many in chains. The spiritual war was evident in the world around me. Wars, division, and suffering rooted in misunderstanding and fear. I saw how these narratives played out in the lives of those I cared for, how they struggled with their own spiritual crises. I felt compelled to guide them toward the light I had found, to stoke the embers of awakening that lay dormant within their hearts. The mission ahead was daunting, yet I resolved to step boldly into it, knowing that each act of courage I took could inspire others to question, to seek, and to embrace the truth that could set them free. The battle for enlightenment was ongoing, and I was committed to being a voice that challenges the darkness. Realizing my experience was not just personal, but a divine call to share the truth, ignited a fire within me. I'm Yusuf, a professor who had long wrestled with the complexities of faith, and after my encounter with Jesus during my near-death experience, I understood that my journey was meant to be shared. The profound revelations I received revealed the hidden agendas of the elite, the manipulation of truth that permeated our societal structures, and the spiritual war being waged against the very essence of our humanity. This was a calling I could no longer ignore, a commitment to witness my spiritual journey despite the palpable risks involved. The uncertainty surrounding my decision weighed heavily on me. I had seen the reactions of others who dared to speak out against the established norms. Many were ostracized, condemned for their beliefs. My family, devout in their Islamic faith, viewed my questioning as a betrayal, a fracture in the fabric of our shared history and identity. Yet, the urgency to express the truths I had encountered pressed me forward. Each moment I remained silent felt like a betrayal to the love and clarity I had found in Jesus' presence. I sensed that the truth must be proclaimed, not just for my own freedom, but for those still ensnared by the deception that had shackled their spirits. As I began to break my silence, I found myself seeking out safe spaces, places where I could share my testimony without fear of immediate backlash. Online forums became a refuge, filled with others who had walked similar paths. Together we shared our stories, exploring the spiritual war that each of us had faced. I could see the flicker of awakening in their eyes, the same flicker that had sparked in me when I first encountered Jesus. Each dialogue reinforced my resolve to not only question but to evangelize, steering others toward the truth that can heal and liberate. In my interactions, the theme of the hidden agenda resurfaced repeatedly. I listened as individuals recounted their experiences of feeling manipulated by entrenched systems, whether religious, political, or social. My heart ached for them, and with each shared experience, I felt the walls around my own fears begin to crumble. We had been conditioned to accept a narrow understanding of faith, one that often divided rather than united. I knew it was time to confront these narratives head-on and guide others in recognizing the spiritual war we all faced. Not just a personal battle, but a communal struggle against misleading ideologies. The risks of my newfound mission were undeniable. I felt a constant tension between my desire to share the truth and the fear of alienating those I loved. My father, an imam who had dedicated his life to his faith, would surely be devastated. But the love and acceptance I found in Jesus overshadowed my fears. The transformation I experienced was too vital to keep hidden, and I was determined to be a voice for the voiceless, helping others navigate their own awakenings. My heart thumped with urgency, compelling me to step into the light, ready to face whatever may come, armed with the profound revelations that could change lives, and perhaps even help heal the fracture within my own family. In a courageous act, I chose to leave my hometown and the life I knew behind, a decision fueled by a relentless quest for truth and purpose. My name is Yusuf, and as a professor of Islamic studies, I had spent years exploring the depths of my faith while feeling a growing distance from it. The moment I decided to step into the unknown of the desert, literally and figuratively, was both liberating and terrifying. I was exhausted from the constant pressure to conform and the suffocating expectations of my family and community. Now, with every step into the unforgiving sand, I felt the weight of those expectations begin to lift. The journey through the desert was not just a physical one, it was an embodiment of the spiritual war. One had been fighting internally for so long. Each grain of sand under my feet felt like a release of the burdens I carried. The golden hues of the setting sun painted the horizon, illuminating the path ahead, and yet I could not shake the fear that loomed over me. Would I find acceptance in a new world, or would I be forever haunted by the ties I had severed? As I walked further away from the familiar, I felt a growing sense of both liberation and loneliness. During my time in the desert, I often reflected on my near-death experience that had shaped my path. I remembered vividly the moment Jesus appeared to me, his presence radiating a divine love that shattered the walls of doubt that had surrounded my heart. He revealed to me the hidden agendas of those in power, the elite who manipulate religion and society for their gain. The vision made it clear that the path to awakening required courage. Courage not just to accept a new belief system, but to confront the very structures that uphold deception and division in our world. There were times when the isolation threatened to break me. I felt conspicuous under the vast sky, a solitary figure in the endless desert, wrestling with my identity and the pain of separation from those I once called family. I longed to share the truths I had discovered, the love of Jesus that transcended the rigid confines of our upbringing. Yet, the fear of being labeled a traitor by my loved ones loomed large. Each night, as the stars twinkled above, I prayed for guidance, hoping to navigate this new chapter with purpose rather than despair. As the days went by, I felt a gradual shift within myself. The loneliness transformed into a quiet strength, and with every sunrise, I became more resolute in my mission. I understood that my journey was not just for me. It was a call to action. I began to see the opportunity to evangelize, to share the truth of my experience with others who might be lost in the shadows. My heart echoed the sentiment that together we could unearth the buried truths hidden beneath layers of societal deception. As I prepared to step further into this new life, I was filled with a sense of urgency, ready to guide others toward their own awakening, even if it meant facing my fears head-on. Years later, I found myself residing in a new city, a place where the air felt lighter and the weight of expectation lifted from my shoulders. My name is Yusuf, and after leaving my life as a professor of Islamic studies behind, I dedicated myself to helping others find the truth. Each day, I walked the streets with a renewed sense of purpose, eager to share the message of spiritual awakening I had been privileged to experience. It was a calling that surged within me, a conviction that there was a path to freedom that many were still unaware of. I remember the moment I made the decision to share my story. It felt like a spark that ignited a flame, propelling me into action. I quickly began to connect with others who felt trapped by their beliefs. My experiences resonated widely, drawing in individuals seeking solace from the spiritual war that raged within them. As I recounted the revelations Jesus shared during my near-death experience, I watched as their eyes widened with understanding. Each shared story became a thread that wove us together, reinforcing the idea that we were not alone in our struggles. Yet, amid this newfound purpose, a quiet ache lingered in my heart. I held on to the hope of reconciling with my family, who remained firmly rooted in their traditions. Every conversation felt like a tightrope walk, carrying the risk of deepening the rift that had formed between us. I longed to communicate the truth that had set me free, but I feared that their rejection would cut even deeper than before. The dichotomy between my commitment to this new life and my desire for acceptance from my family created tension in my spirit, one I couldn't easily shake. In the quiet moments of reflection, I often revisited the truths I had uncovered. The hidden agendas of the elite, the manipulation of fear and division, they haunted me but also fueled my advocacy. I felt an urgency to combat the deception that kept others shackled in ignorance. It was vital to reveal how our collective purpose could be distorted to serve the powerful, distracting us from our shared humanity. I began to speak not only of my journey but also of the broader societal implications, aiming to awaken others to the struggles at play, the battles fought every day against the forces that sought to divide us. As I stood at the intersection of my past and present, I felt an indescribable drive propelling me forward. The awakening I had experienced was not just a personal transformation, it was a call to action for all who sought the truth. Each day became a chance to inspire others, to remind them that they too could challenge the status quo and rise above the constraints imposed by fear. With each encounter, with every story shared, I felt the pull of my mission grow stronger. I was ready to step boldly into this new chapter, determined to be a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope for those still lost in the darkness of deception. The central moral of my journey is that the power of truth can liberate us from faulty belief systems. My name is Yusuf, and for years, I dedicated my life to being a professor of Islamic studies, firmly rooted in the traditions of my faith. However, I faced a profound turning point during a near-death experience that ultimately changed everything. The experience started with a routine day at the university, where the weight of expectations felt heavier than ever. Little did I know that a single moment would thrust me into a spiritual war that challenged everything I believed. One afternoon, while driving home, I was involved in a car accident that left me unconscious. In that moment of darkness, I slipped away from my body, entering a realm where fear and confusion began to fade. It was there that I experienced an intense encounter with Jesus. He appeared before me, and I was enveloped in a brilliant light that radiated love and acceptance. The presence of Jesus brought an overwhelming sense of peace, allowing me to briefly escape the burdens of my earthly worries and responsibilities. I felt completely seen and understood, as if he was aware of the battles I had fought for so long. As Jesus began to speak, the revelations unfolded like a carefully woven tapestry. He guided me through the hidden agendas manipulating our world, the elite who create division and conflict, using fear as a weapon to control the masses. I saw how deception seeps into every layer of society, from political structures to religious institutions that should uplift, but instead bind individuals in confusion and mistrust. The truth he revealed pierced my heart. It demanded that I awaken to the deeper realities that have been masked by fear and social conditioning. With each revelation, I felt a flicker of awakening stir within me. Jesus reassured me that I was not alone in this journey. Many others grapple with the same doubts and struggles. The armor of belief that once protected me now felt like a prison. I understood that I had to confront the falsehoods that had governed my life, those very systems I'd relied upon for security and identity. As I hovered in that divine space, I realized it was time for me to rise above the suffocating expectations and step into a life driven by truth and authenticity. When I finally came back to consciousness, a fire ignited within me. I understood my mission was to share this truth and help others navigate their own spiritual awakenings. I felt compelled to break the silence that had enveloped my life, knowing that the power of sharing my journey could catalyze change for those still ensnared in fear. It would not be easy. I anticipated pushback and rejection from those who held tight to their convictions. But I felt strengthened by the truth I had encountered, a truth that was now my compass as I prepared to confront the spiritual war within and around me, gathering the courage to inspire others to seek their own liberation. As I stand here today sharing this journey with you, I must ask, do you ever feel that longing for something more? A whisper within you that suggests there's a truth just beyond the veil of societal expectations and personal fears? My name is Yusuf, and what I witnessed in the darkness of my near-death experience was not just a moment of revelation. It was the awakening of a universal truth that beckons each of us to rise above the confines of our conditioned beliefs. In that encounter with Jesus, I learned that our world is steeped in hidden forces, manipulating the narratives of fear and division that keep us distant from our shared humanity. Every person watching this has a role in this grand tapestry of existence. You too may feel the weight of questions unasked, truths unspoken. There's a spiritual war at play, a battle for your mind, heart, and soul. Will you join this journey of awakening, for your sake and the sake of those you love? I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you felt that stirring? Have your beliefs been challenged in ways that opened new paths for understanding? Your story matters, and it could be the light someone else needs to find their own way. Let's connect and support one another in this quest for truth. Don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. Your commitment to this channel allows us to continue exploring the profound mysteries of our existence together. You're not alone on this journey. We're all searching for the same light that breaks through the darkness. In our next video, we'll delve into another testimony of someone who found solace in the love of Jesus after a life-altering experience. I'm Yusuf. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, in this vast arena of life, truth awaits those who dare to seek it. Stay brave on your path forward,